Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So let's talk about the state of the overall collectibles trade, especially on the pop culture end. Because roughly a week or so ago, I got to attend Zolocon 2026. If you don't know what Zolocon is, you can easily Google it. It is a yearly high-profile convention geared towards, of course, toys, action figures, and pop culture artifacts. This was held in King of Prussia at the Valley Forge Casino Convention Center, which is roughly just 20-some minutes from my house. So I did make the trek. I was there on Saturday, February 28th. I actually waited in line to make sure that I was one of the first people in the door. Now, this particular convention for this year, 2026, was held from Friday, February 27th, all the way through Sunday, March 1st. Now, interestingly enough, like most conventions, the Friday date was more geared towards a VIP event, meaning if you wanted to pay more, you could get in early between the hours of 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which I thought was a good idea. If you're somebody who's going, you have certain pieces in mind, you really want to make sure that you are able to acquire those pieces before anybody else does. This is great for dealers. This is great for high-profile investors. Me, at this event, I knew I was going to be more of a casual participant, meaning if something came up that I really wanted or had to have in my collection, I would have made an offer. But in most cases, I was really just going to check out the vibe, going to see what was readily available. Most of my purchases are made online, either through high-end auction companies like Hakes, Heritage, some of the other big boys, or even eBay for that matter, and also through well-known dealers. So that's pretty much how I acquire most of the items that I have in my high-end collections. Now, that said, there were a lot of good pieces on display. I did see a card at Vlix. If you don't know what Vlix is, it's part of the canceled Star Wars Kenner Toys Droids line. It's an action figure that was never released in the US, making it quite rare. It was only available for a short period of time overseas. This particular piece was graded in either AFA 50 or AFA 60. I thought it was cool. Again, this really isn't an item that I would invest in due to the fragility of the piece and storage over the long term. I also want to give a shout out to, there was an awesome dealer there from Ohio named the Toy Department, and he had so many cool pieces on display. One of the pieces that I'm going to show you now was an original KB Toys World of Nintendo display sign that he sold for $9,500. I thought that that was a fairly fair price for that particular piece. He also had things in his display case like an AFA 80 graded vintage Kenner Star Wars AT-AT, factory sealed, for $8,000. He also had a loose graded AFA 85 vintage Star Wars vinyl cape Jawa action figure for a little less than $5,000. I thought that was pretty cool. Again, it's really not for me. I was more into proof cards graded by AFA. I really didn't find any at this particular show. Now, this is what brings me to where we kind of have to have a talk as to what's happening in the overall collectibles trade. And this ties right in directly with collectible finance. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this term. We're looking at really a K-shaped recovery that we're still in coming out of the pandemic. All is what a K-shaped recovery means. It's when segments of the economy recover from a quote-unquote recession at different times. Now, interestingly enough, on the high end, believe it or not, the high end of the antiques and collectibles trade is going strong. We see this all across the board, whether it's comic books that are now selling for $15 million, looking at you, Action Comics 1, graded by CGC and 9.0, a Pokemon Illustrator card that sold for $16.5 million, graded by PSA in 10 condition, or even Kevin O'Leary's infamous $12.9 million sports card that he now is choosing to wear around his neck. I'm not kidding. You can look that up. I also did a video on it. The high end is soaring to new heights. You also have people like me that are buying into like higher end collectibles, like spending thousands of dollars on proof cards or comic books, rare coins, currency, Pokemon cards, That segment of the market, anything in quote unquote investment grade, is doing very well right now. On the other end of the spectrum, I saw at the show in particular a lot of small dealers that were selling off like loose vintage video games, loose ungraded Pokemon cards, loose action figures, maybe some lower value vintage toys that were card factory sealed, or Lego sets from just a few years ago that are now retired. A lot of that stuff was moving very briskly. So on one end of the market, you have the higher end stuff where the investors are like me. Then you also have the hardcore collectors that are not really paying a premium for this stuff. They're spending, say, $60 or less to acquire some of these items that they just want to have. Maybe they're buying to resell, but for the most part, I think that they're just buying this stuff because they have a passion for it. And then, of course, you have the middle segment of the market that, in my opinion, is suffering right now. And this is the problem that we have when we apply the concept of a K-shaped recovery to that of not only the overall economy, but also the antiques and collectibles trade. Because you have wealthy people that have done very well in the past few years with gains on investments, the stock market returning all-time highs, real estate performing quite well. You have other individuals that are living off of investment gains because they've done so phenomenally well. And then, of course, you have lower end wage earners that are suffering because wages have been stagnant. And also, it's very hard to get a high-paying job in this economy. As a matter of fact, a lot of people are complaining. I don't know if you're aware of this. In most states in the U.S., unemployment insurance is only for 6 months. There's a lot of people telling me, hey, it's taken me a year, 18 months, almost 2 years to find a job equivalent from the one that they potentially lost. So that's a major problem in all of this. So that's why you have the lower end doing well, the higher end doing extremely well, especially from an investment standpoint. But it's the middle ground that is somewhat suffering. And I noticed this in full force at Zolocon. There were like a lot of people that were like looking at items that maybe were in mid-grade, graded by either AFA, CGC, or the like. And they said, you know what? If I'm going to pay that much money, like $500 to $1,000 for this item, and it's in, say, CGC 7.5, and it's a Bronze Age or a Silver Age comic book, I would rather pay, 3 or 4 and get it near mint, 9.2, 9.4, 9.6. If we're talking action figures, a lot of people want to go after the coveted, of course, if you collect AFA graded toys and action figures, AFA 85 or higher. Sometimes if it's a really, really scarce piece, something that you really want, maybe you'll settle for an AFA 80. Or of course, if it's something like the carded Vlix figure that I brought up, you're most likely never going to find that in AFA 80 or an 85. You're obviously going to have to settle for an AFA 50 or a 60 potentially, and you're still going to pay a premium just due to the overall scarcity. So I just wanted to make a quick video here to tell you guys, this is what I'm seeing in action whenever I go to some of these conventions. I am going to try to attend more conventions this year and do more reports on that, either through this channel or the articles that I write for Antiques and Auction News. I think it's very important. I am unfortunately not going to get to a lot of the big conventions. I know there's people already asking me if I'm going to make an appearance at certain high-profile coin and currency shows. The answer is probably not this year. I'm going to see how it goes. I will most likely be at Too Many Games this year for the first time in many years, now that the hype kind of died down. There for a while with the graded video game bubble, with me doing video after video, warning you guys about the graded video game bubble, I was getting so many death threats that I thought it best that I don't show up at Too Many Games. But I think this year, we're ready for me to at least make a casual appearance. I don't even know if I'll be recognized, in all honesty, so we'll see how that goes. But aside from that, I am going to try to attend more conventions. I do want to go to the Philly Card Show that is coming up soon. I'm going to see if I have time to go. I would also like to report back on that because it's going to be insane with what's happening with sports cards, Pokemon, and the like. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you want to see more videos like this, also let me know. Keep in mind, guys, again, low end's booming, high end's also booming. Middle is somewhat suffering, and that pretty much explains the overall economy. A lot of people in the middle class are being priced out. They're either playing in the low end, or if they do have the means, they're playing in the high end, or unfortunately, some of them are going into debt, borrowing money to play in the investment grade end of collectibles, which is very, very dangerous, I may add. Thanks for watching. If you are subscribed to this channel, I will see you in another upcoming video.